Good morning, folks. Prepper Steve here. Just getting my breakfast. I love this stuff. Today I want to talk a little bit about what's the best firearm for preppers. That's a question I hear a lot. A lot of folks want to know, what is the best firearm to have if you're going to have to protect yourself or defend yourself. And my answer to that question is always the same. What firearm do you have the most training on? That's pretty simple, pretty basic. And surprisingly, a lot of people that are looking at purchasing firearms have no training on firearms whatsoever. So with that in mind, you need to understand that the most dangerous firearm you'll ever encounter is the one that's in the hands of somebody that's untrained and doesn't know how to use it. That causes lots of problems. So that being said, I would highly recommend, before you purchase any firearms, get yourself some training. And by training, I mean realistically, we're talking about more than a couple of weekends out at your local range plinking targets. That's not really training. Now, personally, I don't consider myself to be a firearm expert, but I do have a lot of training with firearms, and I have a lot of experience using firearms. But if you're interested in getting firearms and you're getting serious about purchasing some firearms, find someone to give you some training. And I recommend do a little research on somebody before you accept training from them, because there are a lot of people out there that consider themselves experts on firearms and really don't know much about them, and that can be dangerous, or they have very little experience with them, and again, that can be dangerous. I would recommend, if you know somebody that has some in-theater military experience, somebody that's been in combat zones and actually been in some firefights and used their firearms, the weapons that they've had, somebody that has that kind of experience, along with, say, a lifetime of hunting experience, somebody like that is probably a good person to get advice from on getting firearms. Now, with that being said, I will share a little bit about what I know about firearms with you. Number one, when you're looking at getting a firearm, a rule of thumb that I kind of use and go by is I would like anyone that's trained in my group to have a sidearm and a range weapon, a rifle of some sort. I would like to have one each of those available for every member of my group that has the necessary training and knows how to use them. A lot of reasons for that, and we can talk about that more in another video, but that's kind of the basics that I think about. And when it comes to home defense, in my opinion, the best firearm you can get is a 12 gauge pump action shotgun. I prefer the Remington 870. I love that gun. It's very versatile. It's very reliable. I've always used the Remington 870 series, and I really like them. So, and the reason that I like the pump action versus the automatics is, number one, I can almost pump out rounds with sufficient accuracy with a pump action as fast as I can with an automatic, just almost. And with a pump action, the likelihood of a failure is a lot less. It just seems to me. I've had automatic shotguns and experienced failures with them, and it's kind of a pain in the butt. So I prefer the pump action. And plus, if you are in a situation where you're defending your home, there's something about the sound of that pump action shotgun racking in a shell that just scares the piss out of people. It really does. It wakes them up. and you don't really have to be an expert shot to use a shotgun. Now understand, something like a 12 gauge pump shotgun, depending on what load you're using, but you know, I highly recommend double-aught buckshot for home defense. But you don't have to be a crack shot with that thing, because you got to understand, if you're in a situation where you're defending your home, realistically the longest range shot that you're going to pull off is going to be maybe 20-30 feet. And with that in mind, you can pop up a few rounds with that 12 gauge and you're going to hit them. And the 12 gauge does pack enough punch that in that range, 20-30 feet, you're going to knock them down, and probably out for the count. But it's just a very effective weapon, so I do highly recommend for home defense a 12 gauge pump action shotgun. I'm not a big believer in what I call the spray and pray weapons, semi-automatics, or you know, a lot of folks will convert to full automatic, which, you know, I don't really see the need for that in a defensive situation. Having an automatic is good for laying down cover fire if you're in that kind of situation. I mean, that's really the best advantage I see of having an automatic. But a good semi-automatic is just fine, in my opinion. If you think about the real world situations where you may have to use those weapons, to me a semi-automatic is just fine, and it's legal. You're not going to have to worry about being in trouble for having it. Same thing goes for extended round magazines. You know, a lot of people want to have 30, 40, 60, 100 round magazines, and you know, I can see, yeah, okay, there would be a time where that would be an advantage, but realistically, that's not something I consider a necessity, because you have to understand, if we're in a situation where the crap has hit the fan and you're in a survival situation and you're in full survival mode, you're not going to want to waste any ammunition, because ammunition is going to be important. Having the necessary ammunition to defend yourself and your group is important. Plus, it would be a great barter item, because one thing that I really believe is, in a situation where, say, the crap has hit the fan, we're in full survival mode, something has happened and the government response is not happening, we're on our own out here, things are getting really bad. If you're in that kind of situation, I fully believe you're going to be able to find firearms and weapons. What you're not going to be able to find is ammunition. So I do recommend thinking about your ammunition stores and having some, because again, even if you don't need it for defense, it makes a great barter item. But again, back to what firearms to use. Let's talk about sidearms, handguns. I personally prefer the old-fashioned wheel guns, revolvers, over the automatics. Again, because I'm not really concerned about having 9 or 12 or 14 shots to pull off. If I'm in a situation where I'm defending myself with my sidearm, for me, 6 rounds should be enough to get them off you and get safe. And the biggest reason I prefer the revolvers over the automatics is they're safer. There's a lower likelihood of accidental discharge with your revolvers versus your automatics, and durability. I mean, realistically, you can take a good revolver and drag it behind your car down a mile of dirt road, pick it up, and it's going to fire. You can't really say the same thing for the automatics. So that's my personal belief, that I prefer revolvers over automatics. And that being said, I don't mind owning and possessing automatics, but I do prefer having the the sidearm that's going to be a revolver. Because again, if we're in the situation where the stuff has really hit the fan and you're in full survival mode, you have to understand what your day is going to look like. It's not like you're going to be sitting around in your living room twiddling your thumbs all day, just trying to defend yourself if somebody shows up. What you're going to be doing is doing chores. You're going to be out doing gardening, working with the animals, doing repair work, mechanic work, things like that. You're going to be working on things and making things happen. And for that reason, I like to have a good, reliable weapon that I don't have to worry about too much. If I do get it, dragged through the dirt, or I fall in the creek and get mud packed all on it or something like that, I want to make sure that it's still going to be able to pull and fire, as to where I don't have that confidence in the automatics. And for sidearms, a lot of people have a lot of opinions about caliber. And when it comes to sidearms, the calibers that I really like are the .357 and the .45. I love the .45 because it's going to get them off you. If you hit somebody with a .45, the odds are very high it's going to knock them down and probably disable them and get them out of the fight. If you hit somebody in the knee with a .45, it's probably going to take them out of the fight. You can't really say the same for the other calibers. Like, I know 9mm and 40s are really popular, but you can't really say the same thing for those. And the reason that I like the .357 is it does pack a good punch. Again, it'll get them off you. If you're in a situation where you're having to defend yourself, if you hit somebody with the .357, it's probably going to get them off you. But also, with the .357, when you're practicing, plinking, doing whatever, you can actually you can use the cheaper .38 caliber ammunition in the .357. I know some people frown on that, but I've done it a lot and never had any problem with it. And it's just if you are going to go out and spend a couple hundred rounds, developing your skills, those .38 rounds are a lot cheaper than, say, .357 or .45 caliber rounds. So that's what I prefer on the sidearms. And for the range weapons or long range weapons, that's something you need to put a little thought into. Now, I like the .308. I like the .308 for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's got a good effective range. I mean, if you know what you're doing and you have some experience and some training, I mean, from 700 yards out, you can be effective with a .308. And I can't imagine many scenarios where you're going to need to be effective for a longer range than that. And also with the .308, it takes away a lot of cover. A .308 will go completely through an automobile and be deadly on the other side.